Minasan konnichiwa, and welcome to the Board Game Dojo's Indie Showcase, where we take a look at games from small publishers on our hunt for hidden gems. My name is Eric. Thank you so much for joining us today. Today we have a game, and I love the title, called Hyena Hero Wants to Slack Off. A game for 3 to 6 players that has a little bit of hand management, a little bit of bluffing, and a whole lot of monsters. As is the case with a lot of small publishers, this one doesn't come with English rules, so we're going to go over a very brief overview before going into what we think of this little game. The game is played over the course of 3 rounds. To start, give everybody a hand of 1 to 5 in their chosen color and a scorecard. Everybody will start the game with 5 points. One round consists of going one time through this deck. You'll construct the deck based on the player count, and there's a card telling you which monsters need to be put in the deck. So for example, in a 5-player game, I need these monsters to be in the deck. I'll also mix in some other cards that I'll tell you about in a moment. Then you can start the game by flipping over the top card in the deck. There are 2 possible things that you can flip over in the deck. A monster card that looks something like this, and an effect card that looks like something like this. Let's start with the effect card. The effect card doesn't take place immediately. It takes place for the next battle and changes the rules just slightly. So for example, this one says that for the next battle with a monster, the even numbers are worth 2 times the damage. You'll put this one aside and then draw the next card. So let's say that we draw this monster. The big number up here is the strength of the monster, and in the bottom left corner tells you that based on the player count, how many points you get for winning. However, this game has a bit of a strange way of winning. Let's say that in this instance we are playing a 3-player game. Everybody will pick a card from their hand and place them upside down on the table. You'll then simultaneously reveal all of the cards. If you match the value or go over the value on the monster card, then you as a team win. But it is the player that played the lowest value card that actually gets the points, denoted in the bottom left corner of the monster card. So for example, in a 3-player game, this player that played the lowest value card right here would get 3 points. If 2 players tie with the lowest value, they each get 1 point, no matter what points are denoted on the bottom left of the card. However, let's say that instead we needed to play something like a 14, and in the same instance we played a 5, and a 2. Well, we don't defeat the monster. And in this instance, we look at who played the lowest value, and it's kind of their fault. They're the reason that we couldn't protect the village, so in fact they are going to be punished. Instead of these points on the bottom left being positive points, the player will lose that amount of points. Again, if multiple players tie for the lowest value, then they both lose 1 point, no matter how many points are denoted in the bottom left corner. Note that once you play a card, it doesn't go back into your hand until the beginning of the next round. You'll run through this deck here 3 times, shuffling it after every round, and whoever has the most points at the end of 3 rounds wins. And that's how you play the Hyena Hero Wants to Slack Off. I'm going to clean this up, and then I'm going to go to the other room and tell you what I think about this game. I passed by the Hyena Hero Wants to Slack Off for a little while. It just didn't seem like something that was up my alley until it got to a discounted price used that was so cheap that I figured, why not give it a shot? And honestly, I'm glad I did. The game is quick to teach with the low rules overhead. The gameplay is short and never overstays its welcome, and the art is honestly better than I expected. Nah, maybe the theme I don't really understand. I don't really get the whole concept behind the hyena hero and wanting to slack off. Are hyenas notorious for slacking off? I don't really know. And if you do know the answer to that, please leave a comment below. I would love to learn about it. And yet, even though I don't get the premise behind the theme, it is so quick to get into. You feel cunning when you're able to pull off a slack job when everybody else was working hard to defeat the monster. Like, oh, alright, I'll just sit over here. You guys do your thing over there. It's humorous. And yet it is just as humorous when you fail because of one person. Like, you are all working so hard and yet one hyena lets you down, and so you get to kind of make fun of them for a bit in a way that is humorous. They are a little bit punished, but not in a way that makes them feel alienating. Everything has this light feeling to it. And you'll notice that in both of those instances that I just said, it's really one person winning or one person losing, which doesn't actually happen as often as you would think would. Because everybody is trying to be the cunning one, everybody's going to play a really low number, and so quite often you're actually going to lose against the monster. And in both playthroughs that you can find online in Japanese, and in our playthroughs as well, everybody actually at some point usually ends up at 0, if not everybody at the same time ending up at 0, which can feel a little bit strange, but is not abnormal for this kind of game. This makes sense when you're just thinking about the hand makeup of everybody. You have a 1, a 2, a 3, a 4, and a 5, and yet the 5 and the 4 are most likely going to lose. The best you can hope for is probably a tie, and it just doesn't feel as fun to be playing for a tie as it does to play for the win, so most often people are playing for the win. And that can just dampen the fun a little bit. The art that I mentioned earlier, I stopped paying attention to after the second round because although the monsters are kind of cute, I don't really care about them that often. I care about the number that's next to them. I care about the strength of the monster more than the monster itself. I stopped paying attention. And that kind of made it go a little bit stale after a couple of plays. But as you'll notice down in the YouTube tracker, we still have more to this video, and the designers had more up their sleeve. Titled You Can't Slack Off in Front of a Girl expansion, every player starts off with a girl hyena chip. And when you play this, the rules of that battle get flipped. Because girls aren't impressed by slackers, girls are clearly impressed by those who work hard. So therefore, it is the player who plays the highest value that defeats the monster that gets the points for that battle. Now, just right there is enough to change the headspace a little bit, but then add in these special monster cards that instead of having a value on them, they have a special rule on them that is how you would win that battle instead of the lowest or highest value. It might be the second lowest value or the second highest value, but it might also be something like whoever at the table plays a card that doesn't match anybody else's card gets 2 points. And what both of these actually do is something that I love to see in games. It makes it so that every card in your hand is a possible winning card. It turns a 5 into a 4 instead of playing for just the tie. It turns it into a way to win, whether it be from the girl hyena chip or in one of the special effect monsters. The fact that you can only play the girl hyena chip once during the entire game is another decision in and of itself. Both the special effect monsters and the girl hyena chip changes the fundamental mind space of the game. Not to mention the variant rules that come in both the expansion and the base box. It suddenly breathes life into a game that, for me, started as a 5 or a 6, and now turns it into a game that actually has a spot on my shelf. Something that is a bit of a competitive space. I'm not going to say that this is the best game in the world, and that you need to have it, but with the expansion, it now turns into a game that is actually well worth tracking down if you visit Japan or just looking for something to add on into your cart. And public sentiment seems to agree with it. Now, you quite often will find that the expansion just comes in the box with the base game for the newer editions of it. If you're still getting the older editions from when it originally came out, then you're going to end up like me and needing to buy them separately. But overall, I actually find this game to be a pleasant surprise. A theme that I didn't really care about. The art and production is good while still maintaining an indie charm. The gameplay has a satisfying loop, repetitive enough to quickly learn, but not enough to become mundane. And between the expansion rules, the variant rules, I think that there's enough in this box to be worth the price tag. Thank you so much for joining us today. Arigatou gozaimasu. Until next time, ja ne.